Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are watching episodes 5 and 6 of Vinland Saga. So the last episode we had a pretty critical moment, I'm going to say, with the death of Thor's, one that, despite seeing it coming, made me cry. I not only think that this is going to be a crucial motivation for Thorfinn himself, obviously idolizing his father, especially seeing him fighting up to that point and very much relying on his father. He's like a young child, so seeing his father be killed is definitely going to have a lot of effects on him anyway, but it seems to be a very life-changing event for him in terms of like the rage and vengeance that we are getting with him. But I also feel like it is going to be a motivator for a lot of other events and conflicts to come. We saw that Thor's was the kind of person who had a lot of influence on a lot of people that he has interacted with in the past, probably, where he was interacting with certain fighters and warriors while he was a warrior. He seemed to be fairly highly ranked when he was doing that. He was also in charge of this village that he was raising his family in, so I feel like that is going to have some impact on how they feel. Other people who were these other young men who were going to be joining this conflict also looking up to him and idolizing him in a certain way, so I don't know if it is going to pull them into any kind of conflict as well. But I also feel like there are some obligations and some past strings that Thor's had that we haven't been introduced to yet at this part of the story. Considering that he was told to come back and join this conflict, he seems to have a lot of influence in some high places in this war that is starting. So I feel like his death is going to have a much wider impact than maybe it seems right now. I feel like it's something that is going to continually come up, as unfortunately I think Thorfinn is going to be pulled farther into this conflict that is happening. At the moment he's on a boat being dragged behind these pirates that were hired to kill Thor's. I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to, I don't know, adopt him, train him, bring him into their ranks and teach him some fighting and what have you. He seems a little bit wrathful at the moment, but I think that they will see some of the potential in him and take him in as one of their own, even if he's never truly part of their group, because he definitely wants to take vengeance on them. Yeah, I feel like some corruption of him, even though we've already seen him have this drastic personality change with the death of his father. I feel like it's only going to get worse because he'll be like surrounded by these people who basically are just guns for hire, except like not guns in this case because of the time period. I guess there's gunpowder, but probably not in like the Norse. Anyway, big moment happening. I'm sure that we are going to get into some of the real substance of what the show is going to be about now that we have put in this motivation for Thorfinn as our protagonist. So let's get into episode 5. In 3, 2, 1, go. Sorry, my sound was just off for some reason. Starting with the opener. I'm honestly not sure if I'm ready for this. I feel like this show is more intense than what I've been watching for a while in the anime world. That I don't know if I was fully prepared for what I was about to get into. And I also don't know like where the storyline's gonna go. I keep making predictions and being wrong most of the time. Except about Thor's. Which I was unfortunately correct about how his story was gonna end. I hope we get some backstory still though. Like, I hope that we get to find out maybe some of what Thor's was involved in before he decided to leave being a mercenary, I guess, soldier. So we're back where we were. Is Thorfinn still just hanging out in that boat? Being angry? Maybe yelling into the void? Oh, little thing. Yeah, it's salt water. It's not going to help you. He's probably hungry too. Oh, I just want to help him. Give him some water, some food, a blanket, a hug. Okay, but be careful you don't make yourself sick. Gonna have to figure out the food situation. I don't like the screaming from the distance. Or the fire. Is this because of the pirates or someone else? Pirates. So they're pillaging. I feel like that's only going to fuel Thorfinn's hatred. But like you're not gonna be any use fighting against them, given that you are one, small, two, starving, and three, obviously not in good health at the moment. I'm just saying. You're gonna need some major survival skills. Survival skills, not rage. Though I don't know how much self preservation matters to him at this particular moment, to be fair. He could just not care about his life. So, I had a feeling he would be awake. I don't think he would be that much, like, put his guard down that much. Why? I mean, there's that at least. I think Askeladd would also, like, just probably somewhat fight him head on, in that he might do something like that. I don't think he would expend a bunch of energy into it, but I do think he's intrigued by Thorfinn. Like, he could just kill him, but I think he sees something in him, or he hopes that there's something in him, given who Thor's was and what he was like. Who are the hooded people? Hello? Sure. They work for Blorky. Desperation, though. Desperation makes people do things that maybe their morals don't want them to. Not the rabbit. My heart can't. I love animals so much. But be careful of, like, plants, because some of them are poisonous. Like mushrooms and berries and stuff. Ugh, I just want to hug him. Seems like a slightly repressed response. Wow, the determination. I was wondering what the reaction was going to be to uh Thorfinn going missing. I feel like she's kind of losing herself in, stuff that she can control instead of like focusing on, you know, the death and uh the fact that her brother is missing and stuff. Now that like it's kind of just her having to take care of everything, right? Like it's easier to kind of focus on what you have control over and what you can lose yourself in than something uncontrollable like losing a loved one, right? See, I feel like this is going to be the moment when it kind of hits. Yeah. I have a similar thing where I don't like things that I can't control, so I always end up kind of losing myself in things that I actually do have some kind of control over. Can we talk about how beautiful the scenery is of this show, though? Like the use of light and stuff? Just breathtaking. Weak, maybe in comparison to like fully grown men, but the fact that he's still alive, I think, says a lot. There's definitely some like fueled by pure rage going on. Hello, scavenger. Hey. Like I said, I love animals. Sometimes you have to show kindness. Oh, but it probably just wanted food. I'm very distraught about everything that's going on. I feel like I'm just no, I'm not cut out for the killing a bunny. I understand trying to eat it in desperation and stuff, but you're gonna have to figure out the balance if you want to throw it. I do like that he's kind of figuring out for himself, like how to survive, how to fight, how to like, um, adapt to his environment and his situation. Oh no, the bunny! Even though I understand, it still hurts my heart. But like the fact that he is adapting and surviving shows that like he isn't as weak as maybe you would expect, right? Like someone who had less determination would have just given up and not tried to adapt and change and learn. I wonder if this is going to be a repeating thing of like Thorfinn kind of learning to fight by like challenging to him like Askeladd to a duel multiple times because they learned that like he wasn't going to do well with the sword by fighting him before, and now we're getting him fighting him again. Oof. Yeah, you're gonna have to figure out a way to block. Or it can't just be offense. Ooh, still fighting though. I don't know how much I take his promises, though. Ugh. And I hate the look on Thorfinn's face through like most of this shift that's happened. I definitely feel like I'm not gonna make it through this show without emotional roller coaster. And I think part of that is just like the nature of the show, and the other part is that put in a similar situation to Thorfinn in that episode, I don't know how well I would do, because honestly, I get so upset about the idea that he like hurt a wolf and ate a bunny, and I'm just like distraught about the idea of that. So I wouldn't do well, but I'm glad that Thorfinn is hanging in there and surviving. I'm worried anyway, because the whole vengeance thing is like not good path. That path leads to just heartbreak, and like I said before, it's the best way to destroy yourself is to try and take revenge for something. And I just feel like he's already losing so much of who he is, even in this short period. Like it's been like what, this episode and the last like tiny little bit of the end of the last episode, that he's just so different from who he was at the beginning of the series. Like his facial expression, which is obviously like a really big indicator of how much he's changed, but also just his demeanor, like the way that he sees the world is so different. And I feel like the more that he leans in to this kind of vengeance and this anger, the worse that is going to become. Like I feel like he is slowly becoming something that at the beginning of the series he would not have even thought he could become, or that even his father Thors could think he would become. I'm very nervous about that. I feel like maybe he's diverging a little bit more from that, as Askeladd told him that he has to prove himself in battle. That seems to be kind of the next thing. And like I said, this repeated pattern of him challenging Askeladd to a duel between them, I think that that's going to continue to happen, and he's going to keep trying to prove himself, and obviously also like kill Askeladd as the show goes on. But it looks like maybe he is going to get some kind of training, prove himself in battle. I don't know if that means he is going to join these, pirates, mercenaries for hire. I don't know if that is what's going to happen, because I can't think of another instance where he could like easily find himself in a battle to prove himself, let alone have like Askeladd know that he did something in battle. So I'm not really sure how that's gonna work out. I feel like I said before, he's going to just kind of find himself caught up in following these pirates around and being part of their lives and their battles and their training and stuff like that, as he kind of was a little bit in this episode, where he was sort of on the fringes of them and not really part of the group, but he was kind of sticking around them, and they were kind of having these little interactions with him that helped him understand that he couldn't fight with a sword, that he could use his knife in a different way, that he could throw it, that having access to certain foods. So all of that kind of him sort of being this almost scavenger on the outside of this group of pirates. So I don't know if that is going to be a continued thing as he goes forward, or if he will diverge a little bit more from that group. I can't really see him easily going off and doing something else. Like there aren't a ton of villages around. Like it's not like now where there are like cities and roads and stuff to like get places. So I can't really see how he would get anywhere without like a boat or a way of transporting himself somewhere. So I think he'll probably stay with them. We of course had a little bit of his family, with them finding out what happened to Thors and that Thorfinn is missing. Thor's friend vowing that he is going to try and find Thorfinn, which is good. I don't know if he'll like what he finds, because Thorfinn is rapidly changing into someone else. So good that someone is at least going to come after Thorfinn. I don't know how much more we are going to see of his family, especially his sister, who I find an intriguing character, but every once in a while I'm like, I don't know how I feel about her quite yet. Part of her personality I like kind of her more assertive personality, and I definitely feel the same way of when I'm faced with like things that I can't control, like grief and just like forces outside of myself in the world that like I can't control. I tend to lose myself in working on things because I can control those things, and it kind of helps distract from those feelings of being helpless. And I feel a connection to her in that regard, but at the same time, she was like, we should just get slaves. And I'm like, no, no, maybe we don't enslave human beings. Maybe we don't. I don't know how much we are going to see of Thorfinn's family or his village or the other characters that were involved with it. We saw them briefly. I don't know if we're going to see some of the like young men who were going off with Thor's as Thor's friend tries to find Thorfinn. There's so much of the show that like whenever I make a prediction, I'm usually wrong. So let's just get into episode 6 and see where the story takes us. In 3, 2, 1, go. I feel like I'm definitely not ready for this. I feel like this whole show, I question whether or not I'm ready. I guess that would be nice, actually, the like rainwater, if you've been at sea for that long, to like somewhat wash and also like have water that isn't salt. At least he's on the main boat. I still don't know how I feel about him being part of pirates. Getting a history lesson. The epic music in the background. You got an arrow right here. Ugh. Ravens always make me think of the Modigan, which if you know like Celtic stories, uh she is not someone that you want to show up ever. But she's I don't know, I guess the best equivalent would be like a god, a goddess, but not really. Not in kind of like the like classical sense, like Greek or Roman or anything like that. Even um like Nordic gods, not like Odin or Thor or anything like that. Modigan's more like a older mystical being, but I guess not applicable if we're talking about like Nordic uh stuff. But are ravens connected to Odin in somehow? I can't remember. Because Odin only shows up when there's a lot of death around as well. Um, he's actually not nice. Despite some of the depictions of him as like a nice old man looking at Marvel, making Odin seem like a nice person, he isn't. You never ever want to run into Odin. So there's a few bodies, just like a couple. There's a weird use of like CGI in this show that always kind of throws me out a little bit. I understand why they use it, because like numbers, having a bunch of characters and like having to animate them in 2D is a lot harder than just like rigging them. Oh, Must be a lot though, to be like walking through a war zone in the aftermath when you're that young. I don't know, using cell swords always seems like a bad idea. I mean, maybe if you're a king, you have enough money to be the richest person hiring them, but they're likely to turn on you if someone else has more money. I don't trust what he's saying because his face is completely in shadow. Between the smile and the fact that I know that he's not always true to his word, and then the shadow being completely over his face, as opposed to like this Dane soldier whose face is like properly lit. Just saying. Thorfinn's spying though. So one of the upsides, I guess, of no one paying attention to you. Oy. I'm assuming those are English. Oof. Do they not have shields? Some of them do. Pure grit, though. Rage and determination. I'm very worried about Thorfinn. I don't want you to jump into this, though. You're a small child. You have no combat training. All you have is a little knife. I don't want you to get involved. I want you to be as far away as possible. Oh. Ugh. What a brutal world to be thrown into, though. He wanted adventure and to be part of a war, though. So I guess be careful what you wish for. And I don't like that he's actively trying to kill people either. Uh, I don't know if that's necessary. Probably just the fear, though. You know, near death experience, adrenaline, and the like fight instinct. Where like you're just so desperate to survive that it kind of takes over. But he's gonna have to live with the fact that he killed somebody. I'm just thinking back to Thor saying like it's never okay to hurt someone, and like him trying to shield him from this. Oof. I mean, skilled shot though, given the chain mail. Oof. Good shot though. He's a lot more acrobatic than uh, some of them that are fighting with swords. Though Askeladd was also quite acrobatic with his fighting style on the boat. I do feel like he saved Askeladd in that one scene because it's one of those like only I'm allowed to kill you kind of things. Like he doesn't want someone else to kill Askeladd, he wants to do it himself. Oh, dang, Thorfinn. He's good at it though. Like I'm torn between being horrified from like a motherly perspective and impressed by the skill. I like the double blades though. Ugh, that was a lot of gore back to back. Oh no! He got hit with an arrow though. Don't pull it out. Good lord. You'll bleed out way more. I don't want you to kill the doggies though. I already had to deal with the rabbit in the last one. He's gonna have to try and find his way back though. Way to find himself back on a farm though. Just like his childhood. Do not hurt this dog. Swear. Or these nice ladies for helping you. Be nice. I'm assuming they are English though, which might be why he's a little bit uh apprehensive to be nice to them, but be nice to them. I was gonna say, I wonder if he speaks English. I mean, I doubt anyone has been trying to take care of him since he joined in with the pirates. Oh, hello. Oh dear. I feel like she's gonna protect him. He's killed more than a couple of people. It does seem like she wants a replacement for her son, though. And I bet in a way it reminds him of like his mom and his sister, right? Because Thorfinn has, you know, a mom and an older sister too, so I'm sure that he finds similarities. Like it reminds him of being home. He did try to warn them, in a way. He's like limited because he doesn't really speak English. He only knows like a couple of words. Yep. Ugh, that's terrifying. There definitely is a desperation in general to Thorfinn. Ooh, the change when he saw her though. It's like when he saw the dog, his expression was different than when he saw them. Oh, I guess he's because I suppose like if he's been with the pirates, he's only been like praised for being violent and good at killing people, and that's very different from being around just normal people. Even just like in the battlefield, like everyone he's met has probably been an enemy who's been trying to kill him, and then now he's faced with like just ordinary people who are trying to live their life, and he's reminded that there's something else other than, you know, just fighting and killing and stuff. See, it was like, I bet it reminds him of his family and who his dad was. Just saying. Thor's tries to help people. Tried to help people. Past tense, unfortunately. I suppose he's gonna have to make a decision if he wants to be like Askeladd and the other pirates, or if he wants to be like Thor's. Oh, heartbreaking though. I think one of my favorite things about this series is the use of just facial expressions. Like, obviously, in the case of Thorfinn, there's like a very obvious and exaggerated change between, you know, when he was looking at that woman who helped him and then when he's kind of in his battle rage mode. But even before, there was like little moments on like Thor's face and Thorfinn and like lots of the other characters where you could just see little bits of emotion, little nuances to how they were feeling, that I think is just a really interesting utilization of like being able to push and exaggerate facial expressions in animation that I don't think a lot of people do. Like, I haven't noticed in animation, partly because it costs money to like even slightly change something in an animation. Like, every movement is like another frame that you have to like get an animator to do. So obviously, if they are going to have some kind of emotion on the character, usually it is like the big important emotions that are like at the forefront of the scene, whereas I don't see a lot of it with those tiny little moments. And it's interesting because you can see that in other parts of the animation they're taking like the cheap way out, and I say that the cheap way out, it's not really cheap in terms of like lower quality necessarily, but you see it with the use of the 3D models, the CGI that's being used. That's a lot cheaper because you just have to rig a 3D model. Obviously, like that takes work, like building a 3D model and then rigging it. A lot of the time it's like further back from, like, it's not in the foreground of the scene, it's always in the background, and you see like crowds, like the armies and the large groups of people, those are usually with CGI instead, where it's like you basically have like a few models and then you just kind of copy and paste them and you have them move. The earliest example of that I can think of is there's the crowd scenes in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney film. I think that's one of the earliest depictions in animation where CGI was used to make crowd scenes, but I might be wrong about that. So you can see that they are in other instances, they're kind of taking the easier way out. Obviously they have like timelines and they have limited staff and stuff like that to be able to put at this, but they aren't skimping out on those important moments where like the main characters are having those expressions, and it makes it a lot easier to show what a character is feeling as opposed to saying it. Like Thorfinn himself doesn't talk a lot, so especially in these couple of episodes when he's like grieving and going through a lot and can't communicate properly with some of the people because he doesn't speak English. So having those nuances in his expressions and the way that he is changing his facial expression depending on like if he's looking at a pet dog or if he's in the middle of a battle or if he's looking at someone who's kind to him, those subtle changes are really important at expressing like who he is without having to just straight out say it, which is like a very important thing to like a visual media in general. So I really like that that's something that they're incorporating into the storytelling. It's a subtlety that I think really pays off in the long run in terms of like being able to articulate the character. Articulate is going against me saying that we're not talking, but I don't really know what the other term would be to describe that. We saw like kind of two parts of the journey with Thorfinn, where at the first episode we watched, episode 5, we kind of saw him, the grieving period, and him kind of being in his anger a lot and him trying to figure out a way of getting revenge and processing the fact that his father was killed. And then in this episode it was a lot more of him adjusting to his new environment and his new way of life and the way that he is going to have to live his life if he wants to eventually take vengeance, which personally I'm like worried about because I don't want Thorfinn to like descend into this very like violent person and character. But again, it's very beautifully toned in a couple of different ways, and you know, between his hair growing as kind of like a marker of both him aging but also a marker of him kind of being unkept. Like he doesn't have like well kept hair, it's not combed, it's not taken care of, it's not cut short because he isn't being cared for. And you can see with some of the other pirates and stuff, like Askeladd, he has shorter hair, so he is being taken care of in a way that Thorfinn isn't anymore. So I like that that was that marker too. And then we also have his, you know, his voice getting deeper, and you see his facial expressions changing. All of this, again, like way of storytelling with just visual markers instead of like putting a little stamp that's like this many months later or whatever that could have also been used, and instead they're more relying on that visual storytelling, which I really appreciate. I feel like animation doesn't take advantage of the fact that it's a visual medium quite as much as it should, and I don't really know why that is. Again, probably money. I like that this particular show is like focusing on kind of the important things and like putting those details in so that those moments really matter. And then like some of the like background stuff where it's like, oh, and there's an army fighting, and we can kind of fudge our way through that scene because it's not important in terms of like having a bunch of detail. Like the fact that the battle is taking place is important from like a world and plot point of view, but it's like not important for it to be like beautifully animated and stuff like that, as opposed to some of the other scenes. Like Thorfinn fighting and getting to see his fighting style evolve but also be distinct. Like it isn't Thor's fighting style, it isn't Askeladd's fighting style, it's kind of him learning to develop his own style. And I did point out partway through the reaction that I just had about whether or not Thorfinn is going to choose who he's mirroring himself after, because at the moment he seems to be in the position of taking characteristics from these pirates as opposed to like Thor's or other people. And we saw him kind of realizing that when he was picturing his family, and you can kind of see that his face change, and he kind of sets it and decides like, no, I have to be this person, I have to be like these pirates and these thugs for hire in a way. instead of kind of being part of the ideals that Thor's had. So I wonder if we'll see any mirroring in Thorfinn's journey to the little bit that we saw of Thor's, where he was like in the midst of the battle and he kind of had this experience, this near-death experience, and remembered his family and was like, no, that's what's important. Like, that is what is important, not glory, not being in a battle, not being a distinguished warrior and stuff like that. We'll see how that goes, because I really don't know which direction this story is gonna end up. No idea whatsoever. You can click this playlist to see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so you don't miss the next time I post a Vinland Saga reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!